What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Van Chats. I'm sitting here with Kaysee Armstrong. Kaysee passed me up Powerline, and what I was doing when I was trying to figure out guests for the podcast, I went and did Leadville. I looked at the whole gold and silver corral, and I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll talk to that individual. Maybe we'll talk to that individual, and then about what is that? 60 miles in, 70 miles in. We're pretty close to home at that point. Maybe like 80 miles in Leadville. There was somebody else just walking their bike right next to me. And I was like, oh shit, that's my next podcast guest. And so I'm going to go creep and I'm going to find her. And I found her and now she's on the podcast. Kaysee, how you doing?
Hi, I'm great. I would like to say that I'm recovering from Leadville before I do this race this weekend, but I'm not.
What are you racing this weekend?
Gravel Worlds in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh yeah, because they have the cool pirate jersey, right?
Yes.
Oh man, so sweet.
Another
Well,
150-mile weekend, it's just
yeah,
like
so
normal.
we're gonna dive into all of that. First, I want to start with we got a whole plethora of things to talk about, and I one of them is going to be women in the gravel scene with the men domestiques. I want to get your opinion on that if you're cool with that. I
Yeah,
didn't even prep you with that. And then we're going to talk about Leadboat, how fucking nuts that is. And
oh, good one.
yeah, and then we'll talk about Gravel Worlds. But anyways, let's start with Leadboat. So what the fuck were you thinking? Why did you why did you even get into that?
I don't know. So I am notorious for just signing up for stupid stuff. And so I remember the last race season. So not last year because of COVID, but the year before in October, I was on the starting line of Oz Epic Rides. Literally I was about to start, but Amy Charity called me and I was like, I should take this. Amy never calls me, what's up? And she's like, hey, we have this real dumb idea. And I was like, what is it? And she's like, you do Leadville 100 Saturday and then Steamboat 140 on Sunday. And I was like, yeah, sounds like a great idea. Okay, I'm gonna go. Gotta go do this race. Bye.
Yeah.
And then I was excited, but I've never, ever, ever wanted to do Leadville 100. It's at altitude. It's mostly climbing. There's all these stories about Leadville that it's just oh, that's not my race. I'm good. I'm from Tennessee. No.
Did you not want to do it though because you felt like you would have to race it? You get what I'm saying? You would have to be one of the girls in the top half.
Yeah, and I was just like, that's not my. Yeah, that's such a good point. I'm really glad you brought that up because it is now that I've done it, I'm I get chills thinking about it. I'm I want to go back and do it again. What a great experience. But yeah, as a racer, it doesn't suit me. So I was no, I don't want to go do that. So yeah, good point. I didn't want to race it. But honestly, too, deep down, I was scared to just do it.
I get you. Because you didn't want to be that person, that pro who gets the 12-hour belt buckle, which, by the way, guys, that is a, if you're one of those people that has a 12-hour belt buckle, after this weekend, most respect. If you finish Leadville, the most respect. But anyways.
I wish, so I was talking to my friend, Hannah Finchamp, who crushed it, got fifth. And I was honestly, what I hated about Leadboat was that I had to get in my car and leave. And I couldn't be there to watch the last person finish because I wanted to see that. It's just
exactly.
It gives me chills. People are just out there. And whenever you're doing Columbine, you're head on traffic. And I think for a lot of pros, your head is down and you're just not worried about the rest of the world. It's a very selfish tunnel is what I like to call it. But oh my gosh, it was so cool to come down Columbine and just see all these people just starting up it. And you're just oh my God, great job. Cheering them on. And it gets you out of your own head, which I had a blast. But yeah, Leadboat. That was awesome.
Yeah. So did you have any crazy hiccups throughout any of the 2 days? So for me, I think my hiccup was really, going from Leadville to Steamboat, trying to get my bikes both ready. It was kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you have any hiccups going to and from races?
Gosh, I am such an optimistic person. Sometimes I say I'm the most pessimistic, optimistic person. I like to expect the worst, but be positive about it. So but this time I didn't. Like, I thought I'm gonna fucking finish Leadville 100, get in my car, and like be like, yes, let's drive 2.5 hours to Steamboat.
Were you by yourself?
No,
Okay.
yes and no. So like I drove my own van. So like
Okay.
now thought I was gonna drive alone. So I was like, I got all my snacks, I've got all these drinks, like I'm ready. Like I'm basically gonna finish Leadville 100, take a shower, get in the car, say peace. And I have a team manager, Liz, who lives there in Leadville. So I was like sleeping outside at her house. But after I finished the race, it was all I could do to take a shower. And like, I was like, oh my God, I feel so drunk. And was, I should drive you. I was like, oh, heaven, please, thank you. Please, it was like all I could do to like snack on like some chips. And I was like, oh, I thought all of this would be so appetizing, but I'm not. I'm in the box. I can't do this. But yeah, the drive over was better because I had somebody to drive me. Everybody else that drove themselves, like,
pat on their back. Yeah, I had a super wife. She always comes in. She comes in clutch. She just boom, super wife. She's ready to roll, dude. And she put me in that car, and I had like a sugar gut, so I was gassy. I felt like shit, and it was off. I was bloated, and like, yeah, it was bad, man. And she took care of me. So shout out to the wives and the husbands and the partners out there that support us and don't even ride bikes for that matter.
No, well, they probably look at us and they're like, "I'm good."
Well, I saw that photo of you after SBT with your partner. Is that your partner? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Gosh, that's a long story, but like I just moved to Utah because he got a job being a fire helicopter pilot. So he's like pilot of the helicopter that drops and gets water and puts out the fire. Yeah. So we never see each other anymore because it's fire season, which is totally fine. He loves his job. It's great with my bike season. He'll be done in November. I'll be done in November, like whatever, dream job. But I never get to see him. But he was only 4.5 hours away on his 2 days off. So he came down.
That's awesome.
You know, so emotional. I'm not even like, I lied. I'm an emotional person, but like not like doing sports, like I can fucking put the game face on, you know, like I'm not like, oh my God, I just finished the race. Like, but now I am, so I can't even like say that. So
no,
like,
you can definitely cyclists can cry. It's okay. We normalize that shit. All right. We normalize that shit. Especially after those 2 days.
Yes.
My ass alone. I did not want to do that. It was brutal.
Shamey butter. Oh my God, like so much shamey butter.
So I got a question for you though, and this is gonna be a weird one. Did you feel like Steamboat was a recovery ride in comparison to Leadville?
Yes, in a way, but not really, because it was so fucking fast. Like,
yeah. Oh well, you were up there racing. Yeah, that's where you goofed. That's where you goofed. Yeah.
I wanted it to be a recovery ride, but no one did. Or like, fuck.
Yeah.
And it's so great because the women's field this year just feels so stacked. Like no matter what race you go to, it's just like so stacked. So honestly, like I feel like if this would have happened 2 years ago at Leadboat, like the Leadboat finishers, like Sarah, Melissa, me, and Jasmine would have been like top 10 Steamboat. Like probably. You know, and it's like this year was like all we could do to get like 20th, you know, but everybody just starts out so fast, and like I'm like giving them all, like every bit that I can give, and then somebody wrecks in front of you, and then you're like going into the ditch to avoid it, and then you see this like tiny gap, and I'm like, I can close that, and then it's like immediately like your legs are like, shut it down. But at mile 70, I saw Kevin Sprouse. He's from Knoxville. He's like Garmin EF doctor.
Yeah. I was about to say that name sounds familiar.
Yeah. And he has his son Hudson there, and I've known Hudson for a while. And they came out at mile 70 at the water aid station. I'm like filling my water bottle up, and he's like, "How's it going, Kaysee?" And I was like, I don't know. All these surges are really crushing me, and like tears. Like I had the like throat frog in the throat, and he like patted me on the back, and he was like, "You're just gonna get faster. Don't you worry." And I was like, okay, like this Hudson was like be positive.
Yeah.
So no, Steamboat hurt my feelings. Like I had a lot of, I would say 95% of that ride was just such a dark moment.
Yeah.
Like look how
I can
pretty
agree with that.
the horses, but then it would be immediately like my group's dropping me. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, I went through some dark places at the start, or on the way to the start was rough. Then when I got to the start, I was like, oh, everybody's here. Like you see smiles, you're getting, people are calling your name, they're congratulating you on Leadville, and you're just like, oh yeah, this is cool, this is cool. And you take a deep breath. And then the first 40 minutes when you have like people just running into you because they're trying to get up front, and then you realize that you're trying to get up the front too, and then you go, you know what? Why am I doing this? Like, I'm just going to take a deep breath and I'm going to let everybody do their thing. And then you just, and that was, see, this is my race. You know, when you're the track racer, I'm not the pro mountain biker. So I don't have to do anything cool. So I start, you know, swaying back or whatever. And you just pass the carnage. Like there's people with flats. There's people with, that have been sitting on the side. At this point, they have like their jerseys wrapped around their arms. Like they're bleeding everywhere. So that's how far back I am at this point. And then I ran into Eddie Anderson, which shooting a shout out to Eddie, man. He took barbed wire to the face.
Yeah, whenever I ran on him, he had stuff all over his face, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it looked pretty brutal. So, but what was nuts, it was like the first 30 miles of Steamboat that was chaotic. And then you go through that aid station. After that, it was kind of nice. Like it was just like going out on a ride.
I feel like I was with the wrong group because as soon as I separated from that group, it was good. Like there's just so much like egoic energy, which is fine. Like you're at a race, like people are trying to like prove themselves, but it felt like they were attacking each other.
Yeah.
Like, dude would sit in and then he'd surge forward, and then this dude would yell at him, and it was just like, oh, you guys could just settle in. But then it was like every time we got to the climbs, they'd hit like a gazillion fucking watts at the bottom, but then by the top of that 0.
You're all together again?
Yeah. And so like I just started like, okay, like drop me. And then it was like I would pass them halfway over the climb, and then past 70, I just like they never caught back on.
There's some fragile egos out there too. If they see that bun past them, they're like, you know.
And all the yelling, like this one dude was just like so like he was just yelling at everybody, and it really just this one dude, and it was just like, let him do his thing. Like if you're so worked up about it, like he's like, well, he shouldn't be able to get back in my group that I'm pulling. And I was like,
mate, it's at this point we're all getting to the same place, hopefully at the same time. But do we really need to yell at each other over this? I mean, because I dealt with a little bit of that, and you know, the perks of being, and I'm not going to say I didn't care, but like the perks of just not caring as much was, you know, there's like yelling going on, and you should pull this, you're pulling this hard, and I had to have a hard conversation with like 20 people, and I just was like, look, guys, we're not going to win, okay?
No.
Even if we all cross the line and work together as hard as we want, we are not winning. So there's no need to yell. I understand that you're frustrated with this individual, and this individual is frustrated with you. Maybe we need a timeout. But other than that, like,
go to the front, you go to the back.
Yeah, pretty much. So, all right.
I love that.
Now that we've had the fun chats about Leadboat, let's dive into the series.
Let's talk about the buckle though first, real quick.
Yeah, I forgot all. Do you have yours?
Yes, but not with me because I'm in Nebraska. I should have packed it. I should have just wore it here.
Like, well, I didn't get mine, and I didn't get mine because I had to go to Steamboat.
Yeah, they were at Steamboat at awards. And they have like your finisher jacket with your time and finish.
I done
if
goofed.
If you don't find it, like I'm very good friends with Christy, so I could.
I paid for it. To get it shipped.
You have it. They'll ship it to you.
Yeah. So they're gonna ship it.
So I don't think it was announced really that it was at awards, like all the Steamboat.
Yeah, because I saw Scott with his.
Yeah.
And I just assumed because he's like got that big ass one, like then you know.
I mean, when you do that, it's like they should fucking show up, shake your
roll the red carpet.
Yeah.
But anyways, but yeah, so the belt buckle, you got to touch it.
Yeah, but so funny story. I thought the belt buckle time was 8:30, and I rolled in at 8:31, and I was like,
you were the bubble.
I was like, all these kids were high-fiving me, so I'm like, getting my shit together. But to see 8:31, I was like, fuck me. Like 1 minute. Wow, Kaysee, you are the worst. And just like had like a little bit of a low moment, and Drew, my mechanic that is dating Liz, that live in Leadboat, he rolls up, he's like, great job, doing his thing, taking my bike. And he was like, how do you feel? I was like, God, Drew, I can't believe I missed that belt buckle by like a minute. And he was like, oh, time's like 9. Like, you got the buckle. And I was like, I'm so glad. Like, it's like different if you miss something by like 30 minutes, but 1 minute, I was like, wow.
Wow, we had complete opposite experiences then. Because when I saw you, like, I was like, oh, she's going to get the belt buckle. Like, if I can just, like, kind of keep in that realm, like, it'll be fine. And then I cramped, I guess, what is it, Kevins? Or what's
I don't know any of the names.
It's Pipeline. Yeah, so it's Pipeline, from the Pipeline aid station. I was starting to cramp a little bit right before you descend Kevins, and then you hit the road and back into town.
Oh, yeah.
I got to the top of Kevins at around, like, 8:08. And I was like, oh, I got it. Like, I got this. And I pretty much rode those last 5 miles as if I was in a breakaway of the tour. And I was just like, yeah, I was so stoked. Because I got across the line at 8:41, which, did you know this? On your chip time, it's not based on your chip time. It's based on gun time. So, like, if I would have crossed the line because I was in the red corral. So I was right behind gold and silver. That's only 2 minutes. It wasn't, so it's not that big of a deal. But I found that out because I was talking to a lady yesterday who missed time cut to Twin Lakes. And I was thinking to myself, like, how do you miss? That's a lot of time, you know? But it's because she started like 40 minutes back.
Mm-hmm. That seems a little unfair to me. I'll just go ahead and say that out loud.
Yeah.
It's like, if they're going to do that, they need to start the slowest in front. Like, I'm all for the people who are working the hardest behind me getting the belt buckle over me. Like, it's like, I basically get the red carpet rolled out, and they're like, go race your bike, Kaysee. And I'm like, thank you, guys. Let's go. And then you got people back there that have, like, worked 60-hour weeks. They get 2 weeks off every year. They take one of those weeks to fucking be at Leadville and bring their family to support them to just finish. And it's like, they don't need a 40-minute gap holding them back. Like,
for sure.
3-minute head start, is in my opinion.
Well, so I think you should just do the chip time. Like, I thought you get the belt buckle off the chip time because, I mean, what's the point? If they could still do it in under 9 hours off their chip, you know, like, because I wouldn't have done it if I was 30 minutes back.
No, I wouldn't have done it if I was 9:01.
That's
so
nuts.
Yeah, we need to make them a belt buckle. I didn't know that. That's sad.
Yeah, so and I literally figured this out last night before our podcast because I was talking to a lady because, you know, I coach with CTS and, you know, everybody's super hyped. And what was crazy about that phone call is she's just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm ready to come back and do it. And like that to me, it's like I'd have felt defeated. And so like that's super uplifting to hear. But yeah, so you got your belt buckle in Steamboat. I obviously didn't. What was that like? Honestly, because you got to share that with your partner and everything.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I felt so dead inside after Leadboat for a little bit, you know? It was just like all I could do to shower, but then I ate some nachos, actually. It's nachos. And I was like, oh, I'm feeling better. And I had like a margarita. I was feeling good. And when they handed that to me, it just felt like everything was tingling, you know? Like, technically, I never have to do Leadville again, which felt so good. Like, I was like, sure, like I could go back and like do better, and like, because now I know it, like as a racer there's like all these strategies, but it was just like, as a person, like the little girl inside me was just like, yes, we got the buckle
for sure.
Like, you know, like you're like the WWE wrestler, you're like, look at me.
No, that's awesome. And that's honestly, that's how they should make their 20-year belt buckle. It's just a WWE, because there's people that have been doing that shit for 20 years.
Whenever I found that out, we were like at the racer meeting in the field. They're like 19-year dude like stands up, and I was like, holy shit. Like,
one of those guys had a heart attack too one time when he did it. I think it's the doc guy. I want to get him on the podcast because that's like an insane story.
I want to be on that podcast with you, like
just chat with him.
I think I'm crazy, something like that comes up, you're like, I am so sane, mom. Like, look at this dude.
Dude, 60 years old, having heart attacks and coming back next year. It's wild. But yeah, so you got your belt buckle, you got your jacket, and now, you're at Gravel Worlds. And I think there's been a lot of hype. I guess I think what makes it a hype is because of the recent thing that Peter Stetina released with the women at his pay dirt. And then I actually was going to do a podcast featuring all women where we were going to talk about it and like kind of get forms of opinion. Now that I know like Lauren, I think, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but she seems for it, like teammates, she's all for it. Because I didn't have anybody opposing, which was the issue with the podcast. Everybody was kind of against it. And I know like the Keos and I want to say maybe Amanda Newman has dealt with this in the past. I don't think she has. By deal with it has been told that she is getting help from another team. I'm not saying that she goes out and finds that help from the team, but the first person I've ever heard to be like, yeah, thanking my teammates for the gravel race is Lauren. So what's your thoughts? Because like we were talking about before the podcast, you have Giant Factory Team, Live Factory Team. I mean, if anybody could do it, you guys could. You guys could probably crush it. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I personally am super against it. Like, I want this to be a ladies' race for ladies, but it also felt like this year. So I will go ahead and say 2 years ago when we did Steamboat, Lauren, who won it, and me were like in the back. Like, I ended up even beating Lauren, but it was just like all the top 5 except for Sarah had dudes. So like, it's funny to me that some of the people who are complaining about it are also the ones who are participating in it and started it. So it's like I laugh at it because it's like, I hate to call people out because I love women. Whatever you do is perfectly fine, not against me. But in what I was told was last year, Lauren Stevens had dudes getting her water bottles, including her husband, and like they were a team, and like that's just how it was, and that's how it went down, and she won. But I could be wrong. We should ask Lauren Stevens. But there was a lot of rumors was that. So whenever she came out and was upset that Lauren had teammates getting her water bottles at the aid station, I was like, well, what comes around goes around. But I hate that scenario because it feels like we're not all like standardized. Like, it feels just like you need dudes to win. If you can't beat them, join them. Like, it's just like how it is. Like, it's like if a guy wants to fucking pace me and get water bottles at this point, like, and my team wants me to win, like, it seems like that's what you have to do. But I don't want that. Like, I don't want that at all. But
what's the difference of, I guess, because, in track racing, we have collusion, right? So you can't collude on a track. And so what is collusion? So, I'm about to tell you what it is. It's craziness. If I came and I sat down with, all right, so Team USA. If I sat down with Australia and I said, look, man, I'll split the prize money with you. I need you to get on the front and just full gas lead me out. And that's right. So that's collusion. So it's secretive. It's not actually teammates or teamwork, but you're working for me, and then we'll split the prize money and we'll call it good. If that's found out, and it's a subjective thing. So it's a subjective thing. If that's found out, then boom, disqualified. No questions asked. Now, and that happened at Nationals this year, which I feel like the collusion call was very poor, but I won't bore you with that. But yeah, there's like Texas Roadhouse showed up, but they were on the same team. And so is teamwork legal or is collusion illegal? And so that's kind of the question. Now, with you just made a comment that you were like, I was in a pack and there was guys yelling at each other. So if those guys are pulling you around to bring you up to 6th place or 7th place or whatever the fuck, is that illegal?
So what feels different, like as being a woman out there?
Yeah.
So even at Unbound, Josh ended up getting some flats and like was in our group with the ladies. And it's like whenever I wrecked or like I stopped at an aid station, it felt like Josh and Carl were with me, even though we were definitely working with a ton of other women's. Like, we weren't like, let's fucking drop these hoes. Like, I love these hoes. Like, whatever, let's go. But so whenever you talk about it,
I feel like Josh can't say that though, just to be clear. Let's drop these hoes.
Destiny, these are my hoes, Josh. You go up. But it's just like, and I don't know, like it is different. So it's
Yeah.
totally different if you have a teammate that is working with you going your pace. If you get dropped, they're gonna draw back and pull you back up. That's completely different. And like what is also different is like when Lauren at Unbound gets flats and all of her teammates are standing on the side with her, like helping whatever they gotta do. Like they're there with her versus like if I get a flat and like
Josh is gonna keep going.
yeah, and like this dude I just met for say like even if he wasn't my teammate, like you're talking about the guys you meet out there, they're not gonna stop for you. Like maybe if you made best friends and they just felt so bad for you, but like it's just totally different. It's a different dynamic than if it's your teammate waiting on you. Like what happens is like if I'm starting a race and I get within this group, like they're my pace, and sometimes it's like a lot of times we end up leaving those dudes and going ahead, which is great. But it's like they are not there with us at the finish. Like they're not there with us for the aid stations. They're not there for us for the water. They're not there for us to get mechanicals. Like it's just different. Like if you have a teammate working for you, it's different than if you're just like in a group and meet a guy. It's completely different. Because this guy who like you're sitting on their wheel decides he wants to go up to the next group that you just got dropped off on. He doesn't care. Like he's ready to get like 80th place.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, bye.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There was a few times, I would say there was a few situations, especially at Steamboat, because I was just like there, I was existing, that I was riding with an individual when I was like, if this guy flats, I'm going to stop. If this guy breaks a chain, I'm going to, because it was just me and this guy. Like we had, at this point, we had jumped between groups. Like I had pulled him around and honestly, I went and found him on Instagram just because he's like a normal dude. I think he's a realtor. And like, we just I just thought it was so cool. Cause like we were two different individuals who pretty much rode the whole race together. And then what's that? It was like the last big climb after you go to that last aid station where you loop and then you come back. That's where we separated. He started having some cramps and he was like, dude, just go ahead and like, don't worry about me. And I was like, okay. But like literally we probably rode, I would say 80 miles together. And we just jumped group to group. And like one time he would ride at the back of the group. And when he would see me go, he'd just follow me and we'd ride. And so
that's the joy of gravel. Like you make your friend out there that is your pace. What happens with the guys and the girls is like the guys are stronger than us and they are pulling us at a pace that is faster than the group we would have originally been in.
And they're already giving up their race to race the women's race almost. Is what it sounds like. And that's kind of, I'm asking some of these questions as a podcast host, and then I'm also giving my opinion a little bit. So that's why I was kind of asking that question in the sense of like what your full thoughts were. But yeah, it sounds like to me that some of these individuals are, giving up their race. And I heard Payson McKelvin got some kind of shit for getting team help from Orange Seal.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, Lauren's not getting shit for the teammate comment, or she is, but just not to a point where I think is enough, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like it feels like we're so hard on the women because like I saw somebody post an Instagram last night and it was just like it sounded so hostile towards Lauren for like it happened. It's like, well, like this has been going on. Like Lauren basically was just like, this is what it takes to win because other people came into the gravel scene, especially at Steamboat 2 years ago, and did this. And then it was like, whenever those people got beat, their feelings got super hurt. And it's like, Lauren just did what you guys did so she could beat you,
Yeah. And it happened at Unbound as well. Like that's where this conversation in this podcast was eventually going to come up was because of Unbound.
But the argument there is like, so when I talked to Lifetime about it, I was like, like, why don't we do anything about this? And Lifetime's like, we don't pay. And I was like, I guess that's true. Yeah. Like this is like, but it also does feel like Unbound's a big enough race where we could say something, but I don't know. But the argument is that they don't have paid finishes, which is true. So
and that's another thing is that somebody, I saw a status that I felt like it was a bit aggressive, maybe made a little bit of sense, but essentially was saying that look, if you want gravel to not be a bike race, don't give prizes. And if you give prizes, then you need to separate categories. If you start separating categories, if you don't separate categories, then you can't make a rule that these people can't work together, no matter what, whether they're friends or not friends, or teammates or not teammates. Like, because it then becomes subjective on whether or not was Matt, and I'm just using Matt Stevens and Lauren Stevens as an example because I know both their names, but was Matt Stevens actively helping Lauren, or did he just so happen to be there and he was like, hey, like, this is my wife. Like, I mean, I saw a dude help his wife all the way to the finish.
Yeah.
A girlfriend. And yeah, they weren't going to win, but like, he literally paced her, rode with her. And that's their deal. Whether or not they're the fastest couple out there and they end up winning the bike race, like, is that okay? You know? And so it just becomes this kind of question mark. And I could play devil's advocate on both sides all day long. I kind of have my own opinions, but at the same time, when I say my own opinion, it gets debunked by something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like we call out names and like that's okay, because it's like if I was doing this, I would want somebody to call out my name. And so I'm very friends with these guys because they're from North Carolina and their coach was CTS, but Nina and Reed were at Steamboat 2 years ago. Yeah. And I was in their group most of the day, and Nina never stopped at the aid stations. Reed always got the bottles, was always, and like, yes, she is strong enough. But what happens is when I stop and I have to get my own water and I'm on Reed's wheel trying my best to get back up, it's like eventually I can't fucking make that bridge. Like, I'm lighting up matches, you know? Yeah. So it's just like, it happens all the time. Like, what we don't hear is like how much it's happening until somebody finishes and does well and we're jealous. Like, we're like, oh my God, like, that's not fair. But it's like, it's been going on for so long that it feels so hard to like stop. Like, it feels so hard to be like, this can't happen, because I don't know. It just feels like more people do it than don't do it at this point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I think what I worry about is the negativity. And so like the moment, and again, you know what, I'm going to use 2 new names because I don't want to feel like, you know.
Yeah, I don't want to like just be like centering certain.
Yeah, so now that we got Reed and Nina, I'm going to use their names, and they know that I love them both dearly.
Exactly.
But if Reed was actively riding you off the back,
right?
Or he wasn't. But I know he wasn't, but I'm saying like that has happened. Sure. I know that has happened where it's just like, oh, I'm not pulling anymore. Like, you can pull me up there. Yeah. And that starts getting really cagey with me, and I don't like that. Like, that to me is really negative. Not only for the sport, but it's just like you're trying to ride off that person's competitor off the back, and at this point, like, you're pretty much throwing grenades, and like, that's where I get worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like I am super worried about it is probably what I'm saying, but I feel so caught up in it as far as like it feels like it's uncontrollable, and everybody's just I'm glad it's being brought to the surface, and I will say like what Stetna did, calling it out, is rad. Like, I want all races to call it out, but what I also don't know is how they're going to regulate it, because there's going to be so many arguments and so much cattiness. I hope it doesn't make it extra catty. Does that make sense? Like, I hope.
For sure, but I mean, when you start adding those rules in, it becomes subjective. And so when it becomes, because it literally says we're going to have scouts out there, and then you have to have those scouts make their opinion of what they think they're seeing.
Yeah. It's going to be all like he said, she said stuff.
And I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but I do know that Danielson is now paying Lauren like a pretty good chunk of change. Mm-hmm. And so if that's happening, what's stopping like a guy with deep pockets going, look, I'm going to pay 5 guys to literally just look out for you. And they're going to wear different kits or blank kits. Yeah. And like, it can get nasty.
I say this online because I'm like, fuck, that's a great idea.
But like, that's a thing. And then, and especially because like,
I want all these people to go back to road. I'm just like, well, I don't feel like all this needs to even be a fucking factor in gravel. Like, the problem, because there's so much payout and so much publicity to it, and I fucking love that for gravel. But it's like, why don't you guys, if you want that dynamic, go back to road? I got signed Lauren to a world tour team, so I don't have to deal with it anymore. You know?
Yeah, I got 3rd place at Unbound in the 100 mile.
Yeah,
I got more publicity from that than winning Pan American Games.
I believe it.
I got more publicity than that than setting a national record. It's unreal.
Yeah.
It's
And it's like
unreal.
Lifetime says, well, I don't pay people. And it's like, yeah, but we're gaining so much as pro athletes to be here, you know?
Yeah, like I mean, why do you think there's people showing up from F1 or surfing and whatever else? It's like, I don't get it, but it happens.
I love that it's this community that, like, for me, brought me into gravel. Like, Unbound brought me into gravel, but it felt like, my first year there, like, it didn't feel like these big groups, and it felt friendly, and it felt just like everything you talk about with gravel. And like now, when you're at the front of the group, there's just like, there's so many like things, like aid stations, like, well, this guy attacked in this aid station and that's why he won, or like this girl is sitting on this, and it just feels so, I don't know.
So I heard I started gravel in 2020, before COVID, and there used to be this rule that you have to stop at the chase, and that used to be the big thing. Is that still a rule?
I don't think so. That's
because there was one at Steamboat, and I was so fucked, and I didn't see anybody else stop at it, so I was just like, all right.
Good job. I talked to Shane about it. I was like, yo, you need to like put some signs back there telling us we need to stop, and Steamboat needs to like make this a thing, because I loved that. Like,
yeah,
my favorite photos are like from those chase the chase. Like, I remember it was like me and Ben Delaney, maybe, I forget, somebody from Bella News, and this other guy, and the three of us somehow ended up the last part of Unbound that year together. And so here we go. I got fifth, and I had two guys, but it was like I was working within the group.
Yeah.
But it was like I pulled on the uphills, and then the bigger dude pulled through the headwind, and then the even bigger dude pulled on the downhills. It's like,
yeah,
God, you guys are my three new best friends. And we like took this photo, and like I love that photo. And then my friend Eleanor, who's like this quiet badass, like gets on the chase and does this like weird pose, and we still send it in the group message. It's like, this is fucking funny. Like,
yeah.
There's none of that anymore. So that's a good point. We need that.
Yeah. So hopefully this podcast like brings a lot of light to some of that stuff, because I kind of came into gravel when gravel was already cool, and when gravel was already cool, it kind of and I've had this conversation with sponsors and people. It's like a lot of people want to take performance away from gravel. I'm a huge performance guy. I love numbers. I love CDA, time trialists. So like, I love all that dorky shit.
Yeah.
And then you're probably the opposite. You're just like, fuck it. Like, the suspension and tires are really the only things I really need to care about. But other than that, let's party. Like, and so I love that mix to two, but I do feel like there's going to come a crossroads where one or the other is going to win and take precedence. Yeah. And I do think a stop at the chase kind of kept that neutral almost, and kept that median, so they could still ride at 26 miles an hour up the fucking climbs, but then they stop and they're just like, and they're averaging 280 watts, and then they pop back on the bikes and go sprint and win the race or whatever. I mean, they hand out cowboy hats for the win. But anyways, it's super cool to get your opinion and kind of get your thoughts on that. What's your goal for Gravel Worlds this weekend? I mean, you're coming off some pretty tired legs. Like, what's your predictions, I guess, more or less?
I mean, Lauren is back here with Cinch. So it's Lauren Stevens. But I don't think Lauren Stevens is doing the 150. I think she's just doing the 100. So basically, is there
jerseys for both?
I didn't even know there was jerseys. So
it has a pirate on it. Yeah, it has a pirate, and I think it has the world champ stripe.
How little research I ever do before races.
I heard about it at Steamboat because there's a lot of people that are going that way.
Yeah. No, I just have no goals. Like, I'm hoping that my legs, like, what if I just feel like a fucking superhero because I'm at sea level, like I'm in humidity, which is where I was born. Like, the Midwest are my people. Like, they're so nice, they're country. Like, I'm here for it. Like,
sick.
Josh, my teammate, picked me up in a pickup truck and country music. I was like, are we in Tennessee or Nebraska?
You do. I will say this. So I'm from South Carolina, and I worked really, really hard to lose my accent. And it sounds like you kind of did a little bit too, but it still comes out. Like, because you probably got picked on. It's like, oh, you're from Tennessee, aren't you? And you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's still there.
Nice again. You're like, why?
Why? All right. Well, anyways, that's super exciting. I wish you the best of luck. But
Thank you.
now on to this famous question, which you seem to
Hold on,
know.
before we go there, let's
Yeah.
say something really positive about Steamboat, and let's talk about how all these groups of women finish together. Like,
Oh, that's one thing I did want to mention.
yeah,
I
like,
wanted to mention that because when we were making the comment about finishing with guys in the team,
yes,
you
yes.
guys all finished together. Like there was like a
Feels. It was so amazing. Like, let's put all that like negative talk about dudes behind, but it was like I was just like, oh my god, like how are Sarah and Melissa going so fast after Leadboat yesterday?
yeah.
And then basically within my very negative experience group, there was this other girl who I don't know her name, but she was fucking strong. She just like got on my wheel and we rode away. And I was like, I could feel her just being like I'm not one to like hype my own self, but I could feel her being like, oh my god, this is somebody from Live Factory, like, and I don't have a sponsored team and I'm able to keep up. Like I felt that for her and I was like, you just stay on there, we're gonna catch the next group. And it was like, I don't know, well, I'm having a shit ass day today, that's why you're keeping up with me. Like I hate when people take away, so I hate that. But it was just like she was crushing it. And then I saw in the distance a group of girls and I was like, okay, like I am going to have 30% more watts now. Like, hang on. Like, we're going to catch them. And then we caught them and they're like, oh my God, Kaysee, we were just talking about you. And I was like, this bitch is slow or like, she's okay. That's what we talk about.
Yeah.
Tell me more. But no, so we ended up like riding together and just like passing people, like dropping dudes, and then we get up to the top of that last like real long climb that you were talking about, and we saw our friend Maud, and she was like, you could see the body hunked over, and you're like, oh no, I was there like 10 minutes ago, you know. And it's like, Maud, and she's like tearing up, crying. She's like, I don't know, guys, this is fucking awful, it's not my day. Why am I here? Like, who am I? Like, you know, you go through all these dark moments, and it was just like, get in here, let's go. And it was like, we're not leaving you. And then we picked up this other girl who's on the rally team that I just like forgot her name because I just met her and I'm horrible with names.
France.
Yes, nailed it. And we picked her up at the station. Heidi, yes, Heidi France. And yeah, it was like a group of 6 of us, and we just started like motoring by guys. So the best part was a dude in the back would like come up and just like attack, and I was like, oh my god, why did you have to fucking do that? And then we catch him, and it was just like by the end, like the
just have 6 girls just berating him the whole time. Yeah.
It was like, are we gonna sprint each other? And I was like, no, like we should go in together. This is such an amazing experience. Like 4 of us are doing Leadboat. We're the top 4 Leadboat, and then it's just like that great experience of like pulling people to the finish and finishing so strong. And then to hear like Allison and Amity do that with Betsy, and then there was another group with Lauren and somebody else. But it was like there was multiple of those stories of women doing that, and it was like,
yeah, which is really cool because it's not like you guys all sat down and planned that out, you know. Because there's one photo of you, I think it's like 4 of you girls coming across, and it's like you're straight lined, but
that's the Leadboat. That's how we planned it. Yeah,
it's almost as if you guys like didn't ride 144 miles because you're all smiling and you're all just super stoked. And it was really cool to see, and I think that's what the sport needs more of. And especially, you know, some of the younger girls that are looking at this, trying to get into this, and they, you know, I'll be honest, even with the dudes, you know, it's the same thing, but like it can get cold out there, like when you're trying to race against each other, especially like for Leadboat, where it was the inaugural year. Who knows what they're going to do next year for the winners who are coming back to defend their Leadboat titles. You know, they do cool things, and that opens up cool doors. And so the fact that you guys can kind of put all the bullshit aside and ride in together, I think is super cool. Super cool.
Chills. I loved every bit of it. So yeah, and I mean, it's like everybody like teared up at the finish because it's just like, what a great experience. It wasn't like we were just like fucking holding hands and picking flowers out there. Like we were a group of strong ass ladies like passing a ton of dudes. Like,
You could have
watch
been holding hands and picking
out.
flowers, but if you were doing it, it was
Yeah,
at like 300 watts.
exactly.
Trust me, I rode next to some of these girls. They don't fuck around. They're pretty, they're badass, and yeah, they will fuck some shit
It's
up.
so good in the women's field right now. It's just like you have to be on your A game, and it's great
Yeah,
to see because it's just like it's like chill bumps. Like, wow, the women's field is extremely deep,
yeah,
way deeper than like when I saw Leadville. You see the top men, and like not to take away from like the top 5 dudes, like that was deep, but past that, it just felt like, oh, okay, okay, okay. But like the women's field, it was like, I mean, top 10 felt like a fucking accomplishment, and it's like you have Amity back there, Allison back there, all these people that are just like super deep and winning like Unbound and stuff. And it's like they're behind me. It's like, oh my God, okay. Like the women's field is stacked and I'm here for it. But like, could I like get on a podium?
we'll see. And I think that's the thing. So like with our men, there's a big discrepancy, and I think with the women, like they're on such a high level. And I think some women have been kind of doing it longer. I mean, even if you look back to um Tetrick, like she's one
Yeah.
of the first like gravel queens or whatever. But like, I mean, it's
Make your cap
insane.
cool.
Yeah, it's insane the amount of talent that the women have, especially from the privateer side of things, like Sarah.
Yeah.
And then you have some of these girls coming from the road to compete, from Raleigh with Heidi. And then, you have dark horses. You have people that just hide very well because they don't talk about the women enough. And so
Yes.
that girl that was probably on your wheel, who is looking at you like I'm on an
Yeah.
unmarked team and whatever else, like probably deserves to be on a
Oh my
team like
God.
that, but nobody
I
knows her.
stalked her and she got like 3rd or 4th at Firecracker 50 in Breckenridge. So I was like, oh my God, she's so much better than I thought. So yeah, like she's
Yeah.
a dark horse. You're like,
Yeah.
she's like, I'm so glad to be here with you. And I'm like, fuck, I should be glad to be with you right now.
Yeah. And that's super cool. I think that's what's really good for the sport, because the bros, that nobody gives a shit. Like, unfortunately we suck. And like, you tell me that you did something and I'm immediately telling you what I did.
And I feel like if you're not top 5, you're so full of excuses. And it's just, I don't feel like that in the women's field. It's like if I'm finishing 10th, that's all I had. And like, I'm fucking stoked on it because look who's in front of me and look who's behind me.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, it feels like the bro code is like, well, I didn't win because.
Yeah, that is true.
Like, have a great time. It's like, well, so am I, and I'm fucking crushing it. Like, let's.
That is true. It's always something with like I had a mechanical or.
Oh my God. I had to stop and put a CO2 on my tire. I said, cool. Like I stopped and peed and that took longer. So I don't know what you're talking about.
That's the most, I'm cropping that part. And that's going to be the sponsored, like the part of this podcast. Cause yeah, it's so badass to just be like, yeah, somebody's like, oh, I had to stop and pee. And it's like, yeah, I did too. And how do you think that worked out?
My stomach hurts. I'm like, my stomach hurts too because I fucking did Leadville yesterday. I have all that goo in here, and then I didn't sleep, and I had to wake up at 3:30 in the morning and do this. Like, oh yeah, and I just put more goo in there. I have a goo ball. My stomach doesn't feel good either, dude.
So, and I saw. Let me. You do. I want to talk about one thing before we get into that last question. I'm sorry that I'm keeping you so long, but this is worth it.
I've had such a good time talking to you. So
sick. That makes me happy. So you do Little Bella's mentor.
Yes.
What is that? Tell me about it.
What? You don't know Little Bella's?
No, I should know.
Mia Davidson and her sister, and they started Little Bella's. It's like kind of through Specialized, but it's just a bunch of little girls that go into summer camp, basically.
Okay.
But like in Tennessee, so I've done it in North Carolina. I just moved to the sun. It's so hot.
No worries.
But they basically like every Tuesday nights it would be like for 2 hours, and you just like it is centered around bikes, but like my best story. So like I have the littlest group because I love them.
Yeah.
And I'm really sad that I don't get to be there this year because I'm racing too much. But like we start out and we're like just going down, like you might ride a whole 2 miles of trail,
Okay.
Like, you start your day with like some games, and they're fun games. Like I'm 30 and I love the games that we play
Yeah.
at the beginning. Like I'm like, well, which one are we gonna play, guys? And it like just gets them warmed up. It makes them social with each other. Like no bullying is allowed. Like everybody loves everybody. And then we started on our bike ride, and it's like we might go like from me to a tree, and like went from talking about how silly our brothers are to doing cartwheels. Like I swear we were like, oh, you can do a cartwheel, let's do cartwheels on the side of the trail. And then we have snacks, and we like look at weird bugs, and then we go back, and then we play more games, and we work on like we do skill games, but it's more like very simple, like just to help the girls feel comfortable on the bike. And then like we throw paint at them, and it's like, I mean, anything you could ever ask to have a good time as a kid, like you're there. And you get to do that for 2 hours, and the time flies, and then the 6 weeks are gone, and you're like, what do I do with my Tuesday nights? Like, I guess I'll go to like Tuesday Night Worlds with a bunch of egos and get my teeth kicked in and have a beer.
Yeah. So how would somebody, if they wanted to get into that, do they just sign up, or how do you, can they donate, like even to be a part?
They have a full website, Little Bellas. Like you just Google it, that is there. Yes, please donate. Leah Davidson was Specialized, started it. Like she's been to the Olympics a lot. She's so great for the sport for women, and just her and her sister have just crushed it. So yes, Google it, donate.
We'll put that in the description below. I just wanted to bring that up because I saw that in your bio, and I was like, oh, that looks cool. And I've heard of NICA, and we'll also put a link to the NICA stuff down below, because I do think if we can get more people or more kids on bikes, like we hear it all the time that, our athlete and talent base is, we just don't have the athletes. Like, we're not good enough to be in Europe, and we're not this, we're not that. And it's like, well, we start super late because we have nothing else to do. And then
and it feels like sometimes the like we don't have the like progress from little, like, but also like not the progress from beginner. Like you can like see talent in somebody, but they don't have the money or just the coaching, the whatever. It feels like we put our money in people who already have coaching and money. Does that make sense?
That's the thing.
That's not to call anybody out, but it just like from an outsider looking in, it 100% feels that way. And for somebody that's come from zero money from a farm and had to like figure this shit out on their own, like the people they put the money and time into are the people who already have the money and time. Like, so
and I don't know about you, but like you get this wave of like, this sport is so different to get into at the top level than it is like if you're a pro football player or soccer player or whatever. Like, you really have to, you have to figure it out. You're your own agent, you're your own marketing director, you're all these things, and then you're doing your own contracts and sales pitches, and
you have to nuts. Buy the equipment, like it's like,
to get started.
Kids, like you have kids that have Huffy, and then they have more talent than the kid that's on the $5,000 bike that their parents gave them. But what happened is that kid on the $5,000 bike will be the one that gets a sponsorship because they have the right into it versus the kid on the Huffy.
Because they go spend 2 months in Europe,
like
the experience,
resources, like. But what I do love about Little Bellas is it's not race centered. Like Nike, it feels like we are trying to progress them in a sport to like be racers.
Yeah.
But like, with me, with my kids, I'm like, yo, like you can do this till you're 60. Like this, you don't have to race. Like if you go to college and play football, whatever. Like, but just remember, like you're gonna have cycling forever, and like this can be your way out. Like as far as life, like you can go to work. This can be your fun thing to do. But with Little Bellas, it's like we're not trying to go fast. We're not trying to beat anybody. Like we're just showing these girls this great little device with 2 wheels that can like get them around and like have fun.
That's awesome. I think the sport needs more of that. And like I said, I knew nothing about it. So if you guys know nothing about it, definitely go check it out. As well as if you do know something about it, donate. Like, I mean, put your money where your mouth is, and show some love. And that'd be great. And then on to the infamous question, the one, the only. If you could have a cup of coffee with one individual, who would that individual be? How would you take your coffee, and why would you have coffee with this individual?
Okay, I'm gonna blow the cycling podcast up and put an ultra runner's name in there, and her name's Courtney DeWalter.
I know who that is.
Good.
You made it sound like I wouldn't know who that individual is.
Well, most of the time I tell people they don't. I'm like, I like told my boyfriend, I was like, yo, like, you know, like if there's somebody you can cheat on me with, it's Courtney DeWalter, but you better tell her she has to talk to me afterwards because I need to meet her. Like,
have you ever met her?
No. I would
we're gonna blow this up. We're gonna figure out how you can meet her and just talk to her.
I'm sweating thinking about, oh my god. Walter.
Yeah. No, there's gotta be a way for sure.
But I think like if there's somebody I want to base my personality around, like as far as like I look up to as a role model, it's Courtney. Like, she fucking kicks ass. Like, she doesn't just like win the women's field, she wins the dudes field running 200 miles. Like, I cry when I have to ride my bike 200 miles. If I have to run 200 miles, I'm like, oh my god. Like, I ran a 50K this past year, and I was like, whew.
Did you train for it?
Yeah, I mean, I do run in the off season, like trail run. Like, we just do trail runs, and it's super fun. But oh my god, like, I love her, and she eats nachos. She loves cereal as much as I love cereal. Like, she loves beer. She's like just doing her thing, and she's like such a positive like role for everybody. Like, everybody look up Courtney DeWalter, and then, you know, if you know Courtney, like, just tell her about me.
Yeah, no, I'm on a mission now. I'm gonna take this clip. I'm gonna shoot it to her email. And we're gonna see if we can do this. Because I mean, because I watched one of her videos, I think where she did an FKT. She seems like a very down to earth person. I feel like she'd be like, yeah, this chick rides mountain bikes, I run. Same kind of thing in the realm.
Like, you want to go on a run and I'll just bike behind you. Like, funny note, Tinder date one time told me like I should go on a bike ride behind him as he ran. I said, do you know who I am?
How did that go?
I laughed so hard because I can't control my laughter. And I was like, no. And he was like, oh no, like, you'll be able to keep up. I was like, no, like, will you be able to keep up? And he was like, how fast you mountain biking? I was like, at least 10 miles per hour. He was like, oh, okay. I was like,
yeah, 10 miles per hour. I feel like you would
date's over.
Maybe even do more than that, depending on what you're doing. Yeah. Well, cool. So how would you take your coffee? You drink coffee?
I do. I love cappuccinos because so at home I make dirty chais. I'm just gonna tell you what I do every morning. I have espresso maker.
Oh, that's cool.
So I like do a little espresso, warm up my chai, and then warm up my almond milk or coconut milk. And if you buy it like in the jug, not the carton, it will froth. So you like take the almond milk, you put it in the like protein shaker, you shake it up, and that makes it frothy. So you pour the espresso, the chai, and then froth the almond milk. And
this is why I asked this question. You cyclists, we are weird individuals. We have weird routines. That's so awesome.
Go crush ourselves. We're like, we need to find a little home and weird things like coffee. That'll be it.
Well, we barely can look at the results or figure out the map of the race or remember the names of all the climbs, but it sounds like your coffee is down to a science. If you're pulling out fucking shaker bottles, dude, like you are on one. All right.
I know. I don't, like, my friends come over and they're like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, I don't need
that is a weird flex, the friends that don't cycle and they show up and you pull out the AeroPress or you're hand grinding coffee and there's like, what the fuck? Like, do you not have a Keurig? And it's like, Keurig, bro.
You got like, I know people that like weigh the like grinds to water. It looks like a fucking
duh. That's the way you got to do it. Like, what are you talking? I thought that was already known.
I didn't know that till this year. I was like, oh.
18 grams of water per 1 gram of coffee if it's in Ethiopia. But if you want to do something else, it's
altitude,
Yeah. And I know people that do the temperature of water. It has to be a certain temperature, and so it gets deep. It gets deep.
Yeah.
But anyways, Kaysee, this has been like a super fun chat.
Do this.
Going from like not knowing each other and just me seeing you pass me and whip my ass at Leadville. Because that's another thing that I want to make very, very clear. There's a part in Powerline where it's just like they look like cinder blocks, but it's just a rock river. You know what I'm talking about? You remember that?
Yeah.
And you wrote it.
Yeah.
Everybody else wrote it in the world. I unclipped and walked my happy ass across that thing because I was not crashing. And so I want to make that very clear. She's a badass, me not so much. But hey, it's okay. You know?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Anybody that finishes Leadville is a badass. Everybody should get a buckle. We need to fucking sign a waiver for.
We do need to petition, I think, for gun times and chip times.
Yeah, totally.
I feel like my voice is not going to be very loud, but I will yell at the top of my lungs. But because yeah, that kind of broke my heart last night. This lady was super motivated, so that was kind of cool to see. But anyways, like I said, this was so much fun. Guys, if you can, please go down below, check out Kaysee's Instagram, shoot her a message and just say hey. And then also check out Little Bella's, donate, Nika, donate, check out Live Factory Racing, and the list just goes on. Other than that, thank you guys. We'll see you next time.